Welcome to Health Oddity, the show that strips away the jargon and hype surrounding all things health and fitness to help you live a long, strong and energetic life. Lining up at the bar this week, here's Peter Lant, Paul Bassett and James St. Pierre.
Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity podcast, episode 67, and we're recording this right at the end of November, and we have a fantastic guest with us today. We have a returning guest who I will introduce you to in a second, but first of all I'll say hello and welcome to the usual Health Oddity hosts, Mr. Peter Lantz. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Isn't it interesting? It always goes in the same order, doesn't it?
Because I think you're
I'll introduce you to the usual subjects, and then it's me, and then Paul.
Yeah,
so Paul gets to consider.
You're always in the top left-hand corner of my screen, so because you're obviously on first usually, so you're always there. So I just work my way around the screen. And
that makes sense though, because what happens is I have to then think of something to say, and then Paul gets to go off that, doesn't he? So it puts a lot of pressure on me and takes a lot of pressure off him, is what I'm trying to say. But then Paul's always tired, so that's probably a good thing.
Okay. And Mr. Paul Bassett, how are you doing?
I'm all right. It's a sorry excuse, Peter, because you have a week to think of things. You know, you do this once a week. You're using a poor argument.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's what I think about all week. What am I going to say in my opening line on the podcast?
Okay.
I see you making notes.
And our fantastic guest today was first on with us way back on episode 10, which was broadcast last November, so over a year ago now. She was on an episode called Sourdough and Snatches that I still have people talk to me about on a regular basis. It was an inspiring episode. It did a huge amount to inspire lots of listeners and lots of female listeners in particular. And so welcome back all the way from California. It's actually 5:45 a.m. as we record. Welcome back, Tracy Reifkind.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be back. Really, I am, because there's so much to talk about, really, right? I mean, I think a lot of your guests can go on and on and on and on again, right? It's just so nice to get together with people, like-minded people, right? And that believe in the same things and have the same sort of lifestyle. And yeah.
Excellent. Well, what I will do before we delve into kind of catching up with you and finding out kind of what you've been up to, and I know you've got a new addition to the family and that sort of thing. I just want to say to people, if you haven't listened to episode 10, Sourdough and Snatches with Tracy, go back and listen to that one first, because in that first episode, Tracy really talks about her own transformation and the start of her career in fitness and in health and in training. So, and we're not going to kind of go right back and tell all of that again. We will touch on elements of it again, I'm sure. But I'd say if you haven't yet listened to that episode, it has been one of our most popular ones. And like I say, people still talk to me about it. So go back, listen to episode 10, and then come forward and listen to this one again. So Tracy, it's been over a year since we've spoke to you. Obviously, we've been kind of in and out of lockdowns. I think you've been in and out of lockdowns, and you have a new addition to the family called Walker. Do you want to tell everyone about Walker?
So does the name surprise you?
You could have called it Rucker.
But you know what? That was on the list.
Oh, okay.
But walking has transformed me, started my transformation. And when Mark got his knee replacement, he wouldn't be able to ruck if he didn't start walking first, right? It's all about progressions. Like every single guest you have on, no matter what they've accomplished in their athletic life, has all been about progression. And the first progression, I can get emotional about it even, is putting one foot in front of the other, man. Opening up that front door and putting one foot in front of the other. It's all about walking for me. So Mark did not want to have a human name. And of course, I love human names for animals. So I think it was a nice compromise. You know, it kind of has a very deep meaning for both of us. And it's also kind of a human name.
And
So,
it's also a character played by Chuck Norris in
Texas Ranger.
Walker, Texas Ranger. Yes.
Ranger was another name that we had picked out. So it kind of, it's like, hey, Walker, Texas Ranger. Yeah. So yeah, I call him Mr. Walker these days because, you know, he gets in a lot of shit.
Okay.
Walker.
So in terms of, I'm not a dog person, or not, I don't own dogs and I don't know a lot about dogs, but what for people, I know lots of our listeners are, and lots of my members have dogs and love walking dogs and things. What breed of dog is Walker, and just describe him for the listeners if you can.
Walker is a large breed dog, a Rhodesian Ridgeback, and he is going to be about 90 pounds. So one of the reasons, besides, I mean, all dogs are beautiful, right? Besides being very attracted to the way this breed looks, they require a lot of exercise, which of course is like awesome. Hiking buddy, walking buddy, you know, we don't run, but just overall on the go bud, in the gym buddy. That's what we were thinking. So
it will happen. It will happen. He's only young. He's only a puppy.
I know, but I can honestly say that I didn't realize I was going to have to put my life on hold, and willingly. And you know what? I'm in a position where I could do that. But I do miss my Saturday class, which I'll be getting back to. I know when we arranged this interview about maybe 6 weeks ago, maybe 8 weeks ago now, I'm like, oh yeah, we're getting a puppy, you know, yeah, a month will be fine. It's fine. It's all fine. And he's a beautiful boy. And you can actually, he's got his own Instagram, Walker_Ridgeback. You got to follow him. It's more about us because I refuse to talk in his voice. Like when I post, it's my voice talking about him. It's not me pretending to be him. So it's Walker_Ridgeback. And yeah, I still post sourdough, sourdough. Almost baked a loaf this morning, but priorities, right? Got to get the boy under control. And then I train. His second nap is my workout. So that's how my life is going these days. But thank you for mentioning him.
I must admit, you're looking very well on it, because when I was 4 weeks into having Sid, I was a right. I mean, I look a mess now, but I was honestly. It was ridiculous. Like any routine in that just went out the window. I didn't know when I was going to have a shower. I didn't know what was going to happen. It was bonkers.
Yeah. And I'll tell you this, you know, Mark and I just had our 34th wedding anniversary a couple days ago, and we never fight. Really, we don't. We have fought more. I shouldn't say that. I really shouldn't say that since we've had Walker. And it's because of, you know, I have a certain training philosophy and expectations, and he has a different one. And so this might be relevant to some of the things that we might be talking about today, which is he comes from, well, this is how men do it. So I don't know if I'll get him in trouble for that.
We'll have him on again in the future, and we'll
can come on and defend him still in a couple of weeks.
So he comes at it from more of a dominant, position. And I used to buy into all that stuff too, but as I did with sourdough and as I do with Kettlebell Sport and pickleball and whatever it is that I find interesting, I always want to be the best. And I spent months researching dog training. I mean, I've looked into all sorts of methods and techniques. And interestingly enough, I do want to get to training and weight loss and all that other stuff. And you were going to introduce me, and you didn't even get to that because we're talking about a dog. But really interested in dog behavior And behavior is behavior, human behavior, dog behavior. It's all about being reinforced, right? It's like, why don't people go back to the gym? Because nothing happened to their body that reinforced that new habit or behavior. It's all about what's in it for me, right? And that's the beauty about kettlebells for me, is it changed me so fast that I'm like, ooh, I want more of this. So when that doggy gets a piece of roast beef, he's like, I want more of that. You know, it's as a personal trainer working with clients, if, you know, there's some clients you just don't gel with, and others, they get their reinforcement from you. You know, sometimes it has very little to do with the training. It has about how you as a trainer makes that client feel about their training, right? It's about when they walk in that gym door, they need you for what? For being uplifted, or training information, or just you know, whatever it is. Everybody needs reinforcement to establish a new habit. So behavior is really interesting subject to.
So is it broadly that kind of, you know, you've got the old, the cliche of the kind of the carrot or the stick, you know, we in terms of encouraging behavior, if you like to say, is Mark more of the stick and you're more of the carrot, or
well,
if you really simplified it?
Interesting that you should use that analogy, because a carrot at the end of the stick is what is known as luring, right? Like, woo-hoo-hoo, here we go. What will you do for this? And I came across some dog training that is known as choice-based training, and it's about manipulating your dog into making the right choice, instead of always holding that carrot out for them and say, oh, look. Instead, it's playing games with your dog, establishing a way for them to go, you know what, there's more in it for me to do that than there is to do this. Like take counter surfing, for instance. Now, I could have the worst behaved dog. My dog's only 2 months old. So I know it. I only know theory, right? I only know theory. But, you know, if there's a steak on the counter and he's going, you know what, I would like that steak, but I know mom's going to give me love or play or treats or whatever. So I think I'll choose that, because this is just, I'm not going to like the result of this. But so there's a difference between, for instance, you can say when people start a new exercise routine, that you could say, okay, like when people do contests, right? Well, if at the end of this, you'll get this, or you'll win this, or whatever, instead of saying, oh, I'm going to change my life every day for the long haul, instead of I'm just going to do it for this amount of time. I think, you know, I was listening to one of your guests, Adrienne Harvey. I think she mentioned a 30-day clean eating kind of program that's been really popular for a long time. It's like, okay, well, what's at the end of that 30 days, right? So for me, it's not, behavior is not about being lured into something. It's about finding something that inspires you and reinforces your wanting for something else, not something better, just something else. Right? So, okay. I know. See, there's so many things.
It's interesting that going from a conversation just around training the dog as kind of, you know, how it links back to everything else. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it's amazing. You can link all sorts of stuff into it, because you see people with badly behaved dogs, and you're saying he might end up a badly behaved dog, but the likelihood is he won't, because you're on it and you don't want him to be, and you're gonna do your damn hardest to make sure he's not. I bought a book. I looked at loads of stuff, but we bought this book that was recommended, and I made a list of exactly how we were going to train him before we even got him, right? Exactly how we were going to train him. And that went out the window, because when he turned up, it was like, right, that's the stuff. This is what we're going to do. So this will relate to training programs, or a certain type of training, or like yoga or kettlebells or whatever. And you can think this is going to be the thing that's going to work. But then when you actually get down to it and try it, you might go, that's not going to work. That's not going to work for me. It's not going to work for him. So we've trained him in a different way. We were then taught, we went to some classes and we're taught to train him with treats to lure him. Yeah. But he's food obsessed. So he would do anything to get that food. But if he didn't have any food, he wouldn't do anything you said. So it was like, right, we're going to have to change all that as well. So this relates to when people are looking for a trainer, or we've spoken about this before, a trainer or a certain type of training, or like whatever it is, you know, you have to use a bit of trial and error until you find the person for you and the training for you. And then it starts to become enjoyable, and then it starts to snowball and work, doesn't it?
Yeah. But I think, speaking of finding a trainer that's for you, or a training style that's for you, I think, you know, I've been working with people for training people with kettlebells for, I don't know, since 2006. So 15 years. And I'm older than you guys, right? I'm assuming that I am. And I think the older I get, the more I realize I can't be everything for everybody, nor should I try. And it's nothing personal. You know, if somebody stops training with me, well, it might be personal. I don't know, it could be, but it doesn't matter. It only matters that the people that you do end up surrounding yourself with are the ones that appreciate what it is that you have to offer. And it just helps you grow, solidifies your beliefs as a trainer, your methods, your techniques, your, you know, that sort of thing. So you can't be everything to everybody. And I just wanted to say that.
And where does a mustard sandwich on the corner of a table fit into dog training? Because that's what my mum did back in the early 90s. The dog kept jumping on the table. And she put a sandwich full of English mustard on it.
Yeah. That's also reinforcement, but it's when you
do it again.
Obviously it didn't taste good, right? So it went up on the counter. It went, oh, okay, I don't want any more of that. So I'm assuming that's what happened. I haven't tried the mustard sandwich, but I'm going to put that in my, you know, memory bank in case I ever. To do that.
You need to be careful with that, because I've heard a story. It was in the book that I read, actually, and it was a story of a guy whose dog was chewing the furniture and everything. So it was chewing the furniture, chewing bits of wood, like we've got a wood burner and it's got a wooden handle, and Sid used to chew the wood on that, so I'd have to like get him off that. This guy went around putting mustard on everything, so he had mustard on the legs of his sofa and on this and all that, and it was like, so one thing can work, and it might work to stop him nicking food off the side of the table, but you can't put mustard on everything, right? So it's like you're gonna have to find a different tactic. So it's you need to be careful with that.
That's a very good point. But let's get off of dog training. Let's move on, because we could go on and on and on. And on. And I know a lot of the dog fans out there, and there are a lot. Your country, dog people, man. So let's move on.
I was going to say, Tracy, we started to talk a little bit off of air. We had Helen Hall on last week. We did a full episode last week about kind of perimenopause and menopause last week. And it was really interesting, and we want to get more women on in the future, and maybe even like sort of doctors who are like experts in the menopause and stuff like that. But just from your own experience, just to kind of touch on it with you, what was your experience, or what has your experience been of getting slightly older, and have things changed for you in terms of training, in terms of your physique, in terms of what you need to do around training, just so we can have an idea.
I remember the exact time of my life. So I started training Kettlebell Sport. I always point to Paul when I do that, because I know he's a big fan and trains that style. So I just started Kettlebell Sport, and I was just doing my last kettlebell certification, which was the very first kettlebell certification in 2013. It was in Houston. Both of those things kind of collided at the same time. And as we briefly touched on before we started recording this interview, it was February. March was the certification, but February, I was like, it's cold. We're in Northern California and it's cold in November, but I mean, in February. And I was thinking, God, it's hot for February. In the middle of the night, I'd get up and I'm like, whew, kind of hot. So I was having hot flashes, I guess, that's the best way to describe them. And I didn't realize it. My mother never talked to me about menopause. Most of the people I hang out with, my students, my clients, I don't know, nobody talks about it. Does anybody talk about it? Really? Nobody ever talked about it with me. It actually took me a couple of months to realize, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm not going to say I'm that old, but I'm like, yeah, I guess I am. So
how old were you just at this stage, just so that we've,
49.
49. Okay.
49. So I was going into obviously I was turning 50 that year. So so how it relates to my training is, I just kind of saw it as, because I was just getting into sport then, I was just feeling so young. I was feeling like getting introduced to Kettlebell Sport, something that you could actually compete at with a kettlebell. I'm a very competitive person. And I just thought, wow, okay, I'm moving into a different part of my life, I guess. I don't kind of feel it. I don't know. It was kind of weird. But as far as the only thing that changed in my training was I had a 12-year Bikram yoga practice. I mean, hardcore hot yoga practice. I did hot yoga every single day and twice back-to-back classes on Sunday. So you're looking at a 90-minute class with a half-hour break. So you're looking at what, almost 3 hours of hot yoga. Oh no, 3 hours of hot yoga in a 104-degree room. And couple things happened. I got injured at the SFG in Houston. First injury I've ever had in my entire life related to sport. But it actually wasn't kettlebells. I believe my injury came from Bikram yoga. So I was on a high during that time in my life. I was, like I said, I was excited about sport. I went to the SFG at 49 years old. I did a snatch test with the 20 kilo. I passed it. I was buffed. I was mean. I was lean. Then here I am, hot flashes and going through menopause, and I get an injury. And it was on my popliteus behind my knee. And anybody who's done Bikram yoga, their big mantra is lock your knee, lock your knee, lock your knee. So when you're doing the standing postures, you've got to have a locked out knee. So I have my knees hyperextend. And for me to have a locked out knee, I actually have to have a micro bend in my knee. I can't have a locked out knee without putting so much load on that joint. And at the time, 2013, I guess I was only into my Bikram yoga practice about 8 years. But anyway, can you imagine all those hours on a hyperextended locked out knee? And then going into a SFG with double 16s we had to carry around. I'm 49 years old, double 16s. How many men could carry around double 16s in a whole weekend? Not a lot. So maybe now, because kettlebells is just a lot more mainstream than it was, 8 years ago. But were we talking about menopause? Anyway, that's what happened to me. I tried to hang on to my Bikram yoga practice because, as you can imagine, it was just so much of my identity at the time. But I went back to yoga. I couldn't lock out my knee. I knew it was bad for me to lock out my knee. I became resentful of all the instructors who aren't really instructors. They're just talking heads that give you the dialogue, Bikram's dialogue. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry if I'm offending Bikram yoga people. I'm so sorry. I still love the practice. I still love the practice. I just wish there was more educated instructors. And also, you know, have any of you taken a Bikram yoga class?
No, I haven't.
Okay. So when you go into a Bikram yoga class, they are so dogmatic about their dialogue. There's no room for, what do you call it? When you adjustments,
nuance or
just
flexibility. Yeah.
Adjustments. For instance, one of the very first poses is arms overhead. Look, I can't even do it anymore. You got to get your hands, fingers, and thumbs interlocked. So this one, but you got to keep your elbows locked out, straight arms, right overhead. Who can do that over the age of 40 if you don't train on a regular basis and stretch on a regular basis? But yet these teachers would go around and say, elbow straight, and I'm like, I'm as an instructor saying, honey, they can't get their elbows straight. So what are you going to do for them? I mean, I just had to put on earmuffs, you know. So there was no help for those people who could not lock out their knees or lock out. Like, what's the alternative, people, instructor? Like, they don't give alternatives. And if they do give an alternative, they should give more than one alternative. You know what I'm saying? Like, it should be individual, but most of their teachers, not all of them, go to the training, learn the dialogue. That's all they know. And they don't continue their yoga education. You know, they just want to be in a hot room. And I totally get it. It's, you know, I totally get it. So I was just...
Sorry, yeah, I was going to say there's prerequisites in a way when you're doing strength training, you know, to in terms of mobility and joint health and things like that. And I'm not in no way highly educated on yoga, other than doing a few classes. But it's not really been my bag. But I'm always fascinated by it. But I was wondering, you know, when you're doing things like deadlifts or kettlebell swings or overhead positions, there are prerequisites that you sometimes have ancillary exercises to train for that allow you to get into position. And I'm through a lot of conversations with people who've attended yoga, I'm wondering whether or not it's a kind of circular feedback loop in certain classes where the position is going to get you in the position, if you see what I mean. In order to get in the position, you do the position. But if you can't get in the position, how is that going to create the range of motion? So I'm wondering if there's modifications that allow you to elevate to that position.
You know,
ideal.
Great question. So I'm not a yoga teacher, but I have had really good yoga teachers that their practice, you go in, let's say it's a 45-minute practice, you go in and it builds on itself, right? The whole practice builds on itself, like how I choreograph swing workouts. It builds from the very first progression. It starts with 2-hand swings. It starts with a warm-up bell. I mean, I can't tell you how many people come into one of my workouts and gets the heaviest bell straight away. And I'm like, ugh, or, you know, but it always starts with 2-hand swings. I never start a workout with one-handed swings at asymmetrical loading. It's like, I've got to warm my body up. But as far as yoga goes, when you get a good teacher, yes, you come in, the very first posture, the second posture builds off the first one. The third one builds off the second one. And that's when you know you have a really good teacher. But this is what I love about Bikram yoga. So I'm just going to give Bikram yoga one more plug. You guys know I love repetition. I'm like instead of the queen of the kettlebell swing, I should be the queen of repetition. Bikram yoga is 26 postures. It's the same exact postures every single time you go in. It never changes. What I like about doing the same thing over and over and over and over again is it's measurable. It's measurable. My practice after a week was different than my practice the first day I was there. My practice after 3 months was different, and I could see it. I could feel it. It was the same postures every single time. So I like being able to measure my progress like that. That's why I don't particularly like yoga. Well, that's why we don't like all those crazy workouts, right? Like all boot camp stuff or stuff that's like random, right? Sometimes you're in for a random, you like to test yourself with a random workout, but for the most part, you like something that's going to give you some feedback as to where you started, where you're going, and where you want to go, and be able to measure that. So I know we were talking about menopause.
So to loop back round to where we started. You were 49, and you decide you hurt the back of your knee, the popliteus on the back of the knee, and you decided that you were going to stop doing Bikram yoga as you were going into the menopause. Was that mainly to do with the heat element? Or
I tried for more years. I tried to go back, but what would happen was I would go to class and they'd say, lock out your knee, lock out your knee. And I'm thinking, sweetie, because usually they're young, don't tell me what to do. All right. Like, leave me alone. I know what I'm doing. So, but I look forward to the day where I can go back to hot yoga, to be honest with you. Really, I miss it. I really miss it. So I did try to continue my yoga practice with the adjustments that I had to make, but eventually I just could not. I would be in that hot room and a hot flash would begin, and I literally was on fire. So I'm like, you know what? I just can't do it anymore. So I'm past that now. So maybe one of these days hot yoga is in my near future.
So that was it. That was the sort of the specific, the hot yoga, because you're in that hot room and you'd be going through these kind of hot flashes and things like that. But maybe a different type of yoga where you're out in the fresh air on the deck or something in the fresh air might be different.
Yeah, I have tried so many different styles of yoga looking for something other than Bikram, and nothing has compelled me to want to continue whatever it was that we were doing, except for, like I said, I had that one teacher, Paul, that was put together routines brilliantly, and I recognize them as brilliant because I understand the concept of progression. And that was the only time I was inspired. If I could have just had that teacher all the time, and it was kind of a semi-warm yoga, it wasn't so anyway, that's really the only way that menopause affected me physically, with my exercise. Never kept me from kettlebell workout. I mean, walker's the only thing that has ever kept me from a kettlebell to this day. So
did you notice, did anything change for you in terms of, did your strength change, or because you were so consistent, because you were just training and you kept that consistency going, you kind of maintained your abilities with the kettlebells and things like that?
100%. Nothing changed for me. My strength didn't change. My drive to want to, get into the gym on a regular, none of that changed physically, other than the hot flashes.
How about sleep? Any effect on sleep and that sort of thing?
That does affect sleep.
Yeah.
That does affect sleep. But my body didn't change at all. I didn't get thick through the middle. Nothing changed. I don't know if it's just luck. I don't like to use the word luck in my life. I've changed it to the word fortunate, by the way. So think about those two words, fortunate, luck. Luck means you have no control over it, really. Fortunate is you choose it. Maybe I'm fortunate and didn't have anything else. So I never took hormones. Nothing. So
we were saying before we started recording, and you're probably not going to want me to mention this, but I will anyway, is because we don't know, right? But is what would have happened if you hadn't have changed your lifestyle so when people go back and listen to the first podcast that was spoken to, and you completely overhauled your lifestyle, lost a load of weight and all that when you were 40,
Right.
If you hadn't have done that, we don't know what would have happened, but it would be interesting to do a sliding doors type thing and see what would have happened, because when you say fortunate, that is a great thing you've just said there, to say fortunate. You decided, you made that decision, you had control of that to change your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And in my mind, that would have that would make a huge difference. But we'll
The only thing that I can compare it to, and I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, because I think we did kind of just touch on menopause a little bit, is my sister, who's a year older than me. She was always the skinny sister. She's now bigger through the middle than any place else. And she actually asked me one time, like, how come you don't have this, And I said, you got to do some kind of weight training. Like, you got to, like, in my book, I talk about that internal mannequin, right? You got to build that muscular mannequin underneath your skin. That's I in my book, I use the analogy of taking a dress and hanging it on a wire hanger, or placing that dress over a mannequin. So when you have a dramatic weight loss, you're hanging the dress on a hanger and the skin is just, falling. Whereas if you put that skin on a mannequin that's developed in, shape, then that dress is going to have shape. It still might have a few wrinkles.
Do you know what? I had I was out last week with a friend he's 50. He's nearly 51. Okay, so he's not old, but he's got a sore back and all of this. And you know what it's like with you've got your clients, you've got your students and all that, and you have a chat with them and they listen to you, but your friends don't, right? Even though you know what you're talking about. So he was going on about, he's like, we were just sitting having a drink, and he was like, oh, my back's really sore right now. Like, he goes, it's just permanently sore. And he cycles a lot, and he plays a bit of tennis, but he's basically a skeleton with some skin on. He's got no muscle. He doesn't do any weight training or anything like that. And it's like, and I was basically saying, you need to build your strength, because you're not old. Because he was like, oh, it's just age. It's just age. That's why my back's sore. And I was like, it's not. And you can reverse it by, putting some muscle on and what have you, because at his age, he will be losing muscle, right? And or he will have been for the last 20 years. And that's the thing. That's pretty much, that's just what you've just said made me think of that, of like, he's got nothing underneath. He is that wire frame.
Yeah. But you touched on something. If you all have not seen Mark's lecture on sarcopenia on YouTube, if you haven't seen it, I swear to God, he was brilliant in that lecture. But it's about sarcopenia, muscle loss as we get older. Yeah. How many times do we, not even near the gym or around our fitness friends, but maybe just sitting with your dog on a bench someplace, and somebody's walking by saying, oh, I'm having this problem. It's just old age. It's just old age. Like, it's not just old age,
Yeah,
but it doesn't mean you can't do something about it. I was sitting with my granddaughter she had her doctor's appointment, and this older couple came walking out, and the wife said, they're older, like elderly. And the wife says, oh, did you tell the doctor about your sciatica? And they were having that kind of conversation. I was thinking, you don't have to just throw your hands up in the air and say, it's because I'm old. Yes, it is because you're old, but that doesn't mean you can't do something about it. And his lecture on sarcopenia actually shows a 80-year-old, a cross section of the thigh of an 80-year-old who doesn't do any exercise, and the muscle is like this big, and the legs this big, and then an 80-year-old triathlete where the muscle is filled in. So you absolutely can do something about getting weaker.
I think when people say, it's old age, it's just old age, what it means is they've done nothing for longer than people who are in their 20s and aren't doing anything. So that's all it means. It's just you've had longer not doing
Here's
anything,
the thing,
basically.
we're talking about age. So I have gotten, I can't do what I did 5 years ago. I'm going to be honest. I can still fall out of bed and do a snatch test any day of the week. I have my certain foundation of strength that I refuse to surrender. It's just not going to happen. The day before I die, I'm going to do a snatch test with a 60 kilo. I swear to God. So I have a foundation of strength that I have, that is important for me to maintain. But 3 times in my kettlebell life, I have swung the 24 kilo for 1,000 reps in 50 minutes. That's 10 swings every 15 seconds with a 15-second interval. Equal work to equal rest, 24 kilo, 1,000 swings in 50 minutes. I have it on video 3 times, so it did actually happen. Because if it's not on video, it didn't happen. Where's the video? If somebody said they did something and they don't have it on video, it never happened. Okay.
My phone always runs out of battery. Like honestly, all the strength feats I've done, they're amazing. But it always
never happened. Sorry, never happened. But I can't do that. I could train to do that. I'm confident that I could do that if I trained for it. But I used to be able to fall out of bed and do that. So really the biggest difference as you get older is your ability to recover. And your ability to recover, and maybe you got to pick and choose. You just have to get pickier about what it is that you want to focus your time and your energy on. I don't know, I could be wrong, but that's my experience.
Well, I think if you're saying that you did, a Bikram class every day and 2 on a Sunday, you're then, that's got to be about 7 or 8 hours, maybe more, moving up towards 10 hours of Bikram yoga per week, isn't it? If you're doing more like 20, yeah, so 20 hours of Bikram yoga a week. Mm-hmm. So that 20 hours is a lot of time that you could be doing other things. And like you say, you have to choose what you're going to do. So now I'd imagine you do a lot more walking and hiking and rucking and maybe more kettlebells than you did then. I'm not sure, or maybe you've tapered down a bit since then. But
so I don't know if you all are familiar with pickleball.
You've mentioned this a couple of times, and
I know.
Is it called pick up ball?
Pickle, as in a pickle you eat. Pickle.
Oh, pickleball. Okay.
I know,
okay.
It's the stupidest name. It's the fastest growing recreational sport in the US and probably the world right now. Basically, it's on a smaller court than tennis. It uses a paddle like ping pong, and it's got a ball like wiffle ball. So the reason why it's one of the fastest growing recreational sports is because it used to be kind of a seniors sport, recreational sport. But during COVID, when people were in lockdown and you could really only socialize with people that it requires 4 people, and it's outdoors. So it just skyrocketed to popularity, even more so. It's crazy in the US. But I started that sport about a year before COVID lockdowns. And then of course nobody played for the first, 9 months before we're kind of starting to get back. So that it's a very social outlet for me. And I get to bake a bunch of stuff and take it to my friends. But that takes up more of my time than anything. And I'm going to change that. So you all heard it here. I'm going to change that. But that's for another podcast. Check me out in a year. Maybe I will, maybe I won't.
I can link this. I can weave this back to what you were talking about, the mannequin again, because Tim Anderson talks about this for Original Strength, and it's in his book. And you just said a wiffle ball, which is it's a ball with holes in, isn't it? So wiffle it's like golf, isn't it? You whack the ball and it doesn't go very far because it's got holes in it. Yeah. And he said it's kind of, I don't know if he used a wiffle ball as an example, but obviously with something like say with tennis, with a tennis ball that's got the right, what would you call it? Tension, yes. You hit it and it goes far and fast, right? Because of the tension in the strings and all that. But the ball, because the transfer of energy from the ball, it doesn't compress very much, so it's transferred through the ball and all of that. But with a wiffle ball, it doesn't go very far, and it breaks quickly as well because it transfers around the outside of the ball, doesn't it? It transfers around what is there, and there's nothing in the middle. And Dan John's talked about this before with hammer and stone and all that as well, hasn't he? About if you haven't got the mannequin, like you've just said, under the frame, then that's where all these aches and pains come from, because it just goes around the outside of your body and around the frame, and you've actually got no structure in the middle to support anything. So that's sorry. Well, a bit of a digression there, but
that was amazing.
I wondered where you were going with that, Pete, but well
I do have a point to pretty much everything I say. It just takes me a while to get there.
Let's stick to the subjects now, okay? Okay, menopause didn't have a big effect on me, didn't change my training, didn't change my body. Okay, now I'm older. I can't do what I did 5 years ago, but I know that I can. Well, what is it that I do now? And what is it that I want other people to do? I don't know. Can we go there?
I was going to ask you actually, because you mentioned it a couple of times while we've been talking and beforehand. I think we've got we did a podcast a while ago with the guy called David Keown, who Mark knows, and he's going to do a workshop soon or next March around. He's a GS kind of world champion from Ireland. And you've mentioned you obviously do hardstyle kettlebell training for the strong first side of it and the hardstyle, and then you've done GS competition and trained for that as well. How do you still do both of those? How do you see them complementing each other, or do they complement each other? Or can you just talk about that maybe?
I am so glad that I was introduced to sport. I am so glad. It has made me a better athlete. And when it kind of made me an athlete. When I used to, before I did sport, of course, I always did high volume stuff, but there's no competition with hardstyle kettlebell. I mean, not really, right? I mean, how do you even judge it? So I would have some sport people comment on some of my posts and say, oh, well, that's good for exercising, but it's not sport. And I used to be really offended by that until I started sport. And then I realized, oh, okay, I was exercising, and there's nothing wrong with exercising. It's awesome. But I really got where they were coming from as far as having a very specific goal, having very specific techniques to attain that goal, and all of the progressions in the training that get you to that goal. And again, repetition, right? You got repetition, repetition, repetition. I am so much better at everything I do physically because of kettlebell sport. I can't say enough about it. So I'm going to say one thing about it that isn't complimentary. Besides the politics of the sport. I mean, come on. I mean, we don't
do politics here. we don't go anywhere near it.
The only reason that I did not continue competing, and I don't compete today, which is a shame, is because of the politics of the sport. So let's move on. Okay, so the other thing is that this is the reason why I never gave up my hardstyle practice for sport, because I totally could have done that. I mean, I love sport. I love competing. And that's because at the time, there were no women who had physiques that I admired. Like, I know sometimes people make fun of people who only want to work out based on they want to look better. So what? You want to look better? There's nothing wrong with that. You don't care about being stronger. So what? I mean, everybody, again, it's about reinforcement. What's going to get you in the gym? Just because, if you're a bodybuilder and you look really great, but you can't bench press 400 pounds, who cares? Like, really? get a life, you know? So at the time, it was really important. You got to understand, I was in my 40s. I spent a lot of my life being fat and not living my physical potential, knowing that I had so much more, that I, you know, so much more in my life that I wanted to express, that being fat was keeping me from doing. Even as a woman, it was keeping me from wearing stylish clothes. It was keeping me from, you know, having thin friends, to be honest with you. I mean, fat people tend to congregate with other fat people to feel better about themselves. Okay, just me. I can't say, like I said, I don't like to generalize about other people. Okay, it was just me. So, you know, it was keeping me from going into department stores that I was embarrassed to go into. It was keeping me from going to the beach. It was keeping me from a Hawaiian vacation. It was keeping me from doing things. So I wanted to look better. And once I did look better, I wanted to stay looking better. And I'm not going to freaking apologize for it. Anyway, so at the time.
But to the listeners, that's you told now. Anyway.
At the time, there was, you know, there wasn't even Kettlebell Sport is, oh my God, what they're doing, especially the women these days. And a lot of the women are coming from other athletic sports. So they're coming in, you know, with some physiques that are phenomenal. But at the time, okay, because those of us who know some of the techniques with sport, it's not about creating tension in the muscle. It's about relaxing. All right. And if you relax, those, you know, I'm not a kettlebell sport coach. So I'm not going to talk about the techniques for that. But that's why I never gave up my hardstyle practice. So I wanted to have both. I wanted to be able to be, you know, I was only going to go so far. You can only go so far in sport if you're not 100% in. So I wasn't willing to give up the sport. I love jerks. I love double jerks. Of course, I love the endurance stuff, right? So because of that, I have developed what a lot of people call a hybrid style, right? So I listened to that podcast with
David Keown. Yeah.
He talked about going to Russia, right? Oh, I would have been there. I so would have been on that plane to Russia. That's how I wanted to be good at that sport. So I totally get that. And he was probably going through that about the time I was going through mine, because he was 32 at the time, I think he said, and I'm older than him. But anyway, so I like the cast iron bells because they're easier. Hello. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to be those competition bells. Those are hard, man. If you do hardstyle training, what do you think, Paul? I'm interested in what you think.
So I mean, it's a difficult. I mean, Kettlebell Sport, or Giveaway Sport, GS, to get the acronym, is it? Yeah, it's a hard sell for people. I mean, I don't tend to teach it to my clients because it is very uncomfortable sport. It is something where you've got to be prepared to be extremely uncomfortable, and for a lot of people, just training is uncomfortable anyway. So like both David and yourself, it's one of those things you have to deep dive into, and I think that's probably why a lot of people don't follow it through, is because once you're in it, you suddenly realize how far you have to go to get anywhere near the 10-minute mark. You know, most people can get to probably 5 minutes quite quickly, but then that extra 5 minutes, it's a different mindset, it's a different kind of element of suffering, and like you say, it goes beyond exercise to training, and it's a very specific goal. But I mean, in my own training, I don't really do any hard style anymore, other than the strength components. So if I'm doing presses and things like that, it's that kind of tension techniques. But a lot of what I've had to do is much softer training in terms of flexibility work. You know, in order to just relax enough, because as I think it was David saying, you know, he wants to spend half of the 10 minutes relaxed. So I found myself deep diving into those elements of the training, but it's certainly it's brought out a competitive side of me in a way that I didn't have before. You know, so I don't know if that gives a bit of insight into my thoughts.
Yeah. Well, this is what I think. I think that if you have clients that are, train with kettlebells on a regular basis, I know you have little competitions, what do they call the SFG little deadlift?
Oh,
thing?
the tactical strength challenge. Yeah.
Even though I've got SFG behind me,
Yeah.
I've been out of SFG for a while. Personally, Mark is still obviously a master. But so what I like for hardstyle clients is the biggest thing I got out of Kettlebell Sport, one of the biggest things, is I am not afraid of a 10-minute set anymore.
Yeah.
Like I said, I can fall out of bed and do a 5-minute set any day of the week, right? And not only that, but a lot of people, because of the SFG snatch test requirements, will do 100 snatches and then they'll stop. Sometimes they want to see how fast they can do 100 snatches. I'm like, well, no, the test is 5 minutes, dude. Keep going. Like, how many can you do in 5 minutes? That's the test to me, not the 100. And how fast can you do 100 reps? That's not the test to me.
It does change your reconditions your brain a bit.
Oh, totally.
In the sense that you suddenly realize that maybe a minute to you, it doesn't feel long, but to someone else, it's an eternity. And so sometimes I do have to switch my brain between things. So I'm thinking, oh, it's only a minute, but for someone who's less experienced, a minute might seem like a hell on earth. That's probably the thing is what your perspective stuff is in terms of duration.
Yeah. So I'm totally glad that happened to me, because it has benefited my overall training so much. I can't tell you. I was able to do that 30-minute marathon, right? With a 16 kilo nonstop 16 kilo snatch for 30 minutes.
What was that you did? Hang on. That was 6 snatch tests, basically, wasn't it? Back to back.
Basically,
just to put that into context. So anyone who doesn't know what a snatch test is, it's doing 100 snatches in 5 minutes or less. But like you say, 5 minutes is the test, but it's actually just 100 snatches. You can put it down as much as you like. You didn't put it down, did you? Or did you?
No, you can't put it down.
Not
right.
In the half marathon,
Sorry, in the half marathon, right? Sorry, yeah. But I meant like in terms of a snatch test for like the
SFG,
you can.
Yes, the SFG snatch test is 100 snatches. I'm just saying for personal, 5 minutes should be your personal a goal that should be a personal goal, not just keep going.
But people find it hard to just do the 100, but you did that 6 times.
Yeah. Well, and plus, I'm 58. I'm closer to 60 than I am to 50. Like for instance, because we've had Walker and I've missed a few workouts, I've chosen to miss a few workouts because really I could have done whatever the heck I wanted to do. I snatch a workout I did on Friday. I thought, okay, I only have 30 minutes. I had 40 minutes. So what can I do? So I started out with a 10-minute set with a 12 kilo. Then I went to the 14-minute set with a 14 kilo, 10-minute set with a 14 kilo. So 2 10-minute sets, right? I had a couple minutes between. And it was my intention to do a 10-minute set with a 16 kilo, but because I've missed so much training in the last month, I knew that wasn't smart. Let's put it that way. It wasn't a smart thing to do. So what I did is I broke it down into sets of 20 and 20. And so that's 40, right? 20 and 20 is 40. And I did, I forgot how many sets I did, but for me, if I can't do a total long set, I like to work my grip endurance. So for me, if I can't do 20 snatches without, regularly, without switching before 20, 20 is my foundation grip. Then I can build to 50 very quickly within a couple of weeks before I have to switch hands with the 16 kilo. So yeah, sport has given me a new, outlook on what is possible, right? What is possible in your training, and just another way of looking at your training. Like, okay, well, I've done this. Now what else can I do possibly? So there's always grip endurance, there's long sets, there's different weights, of course, there's one hand switch, there's, you know, lots of different ways to introduce some type of sport practice into your hardstyle practice.
What are you doing at the moment, Tracy, with regards to walking and rucking and stuff? I mean, does Walker need to have injections and stuff, or can Walker go out at the moment for long walks or not, because the bones aren't fully developed and that sort of thing?
Yeah, no, he can't because of the vaccinations. Here in the US, it's 16 weeks. So he turns 12 weeks. So that's the thing that I miss the most. I haven't even put on my tracker. Like, what's the point? I mean, that's probably the most disappointing thing about getting this kind of puppy in general is I really won't be able to take him on long walks probably until he's 5 months, 6 months old. So I don't know what I was thinking. Peter, what was I thinking?
No, you know what? I've been through all this. We can talk about this because I've been through all. Because we got a spaniel, a cocker spaniel, because they just go forever. And Sid goes forever. He's 2.5 now. But in the beginning, for the first 9 months, I didn't walk very far. I walked way less than I usually do. Because you just couldn't take him out because he'll get arthritis when he's older and all that sort of stuff. This is a little thing for people who've got dogs. Don't take them walking too far when they're younger. But honestly, it's worth it. I forget all about that now because every day we go out for pretty much 3 hours every day. It's amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it. And there'll be days when I don't want to. But, you know, that's not going to happen. And once I'm out, you know, it clears my head, you know, so all this thing about walking being good for your mental health as well. It's even better when you've got a dog because I just love it. I just love it. So it will get better.
I'm looking forward to that day. And I know that it will. So unfortunately, I wish I could say, you know, we're doing some crazy walks like Peter. I mean, you interview him for goodness sakes, 3 hours. Awesome.
I talk about it all the time, don't worry.
Tracy,
I do follow you on Instagram, so I see your puppy pictures. Well, I call them puppies because all dogs are puppies to me now.
Yeah.
Now I can appreciate them more now.
Honestly, you become, I got, like somebody told me, it's just like, stop posting pictures of your dog. It's like, you clearly haven't got one. Can't help it.
Totally.
Yeah,
Tracy,
2-year-old.
Oh, sorry.
I was about to say, I've just got a 2-year-old and that's a real challenge to get to walk.
Yeah, well, we're not going to go there because one of my guys, he said, somebody, because he's got a dog and a son, and somebody had said to him, "Oh, getting a puppy, it's just like having a kid. It's a nightmare." And he was like, "No, it isn't. No, it isn't. You can take a dog on long walks when it's a year old with you.
You can strap a baby on and go to the store. I can't take my dog everywhere. Trust me, Walker weighs about 27 pounds now. He's 11 and a half weeks old. And if I could just put him in a rucksack and go, oh my God, that would be the best.
Is there a law against it?
Yes, you can't take him into certain stores. Like I could take
But a rucksack.
I could take him outside, but you know, they don't make rucksacks for big dogs. They only make them for little dogs.
Oh yeah, like Paris Hilton.
That's a big dog already.
You could start a trend of big dog carry bags.
There's got to be one somewhere, right?
Do they face you or do they face behind? I mean, that's the key, isn't it? It's trying to work out.
I think for Walker, he'd have to be on the back looking over this way. That would be so cool.
I'll tell you what, it would be good for the old strength, you know, the progression, the linear progression for strength training, like Milo, you know, who carried the calf to town every day. And it got bigger and bigger every day, and he got stronger and stronger. You could do that.
Hey, you know what? When we first brought him home, I carried him like a football out to the backyard, you know, like 11 pounds, little football. And now I'm like, so,
like what? What are Rhodesian Ridgebacks originally bred for?
They're scent hounds.
Yep.
So they track lions in Africa
Yep.
and hold them at bay for the hunters to come and finish the job.
Yeah. So basically, the take on lions.
Yeah,
That's how big he's going to be.
and they're desert dogs, so they like hot weather and they can go forever and they're very fast.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
thank you so much, Tracy. Thank you so much. I was just going to say, are we going to see this episode is going to go out? It should be. I think it's the 10th of December. This one will go out, so just before Christmas.
Yeah.
Right. I think it is.
There's always so much to talk about.
I think it is.
Yes.
What I was going to say was I haven't seen any of your beautifully decorated cookies recently.
Yeah, cookie decorating is on hold, but I am baking bread. But I do want to say something, because you did ask me to do this interview a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and I've been thinking about it, and I do enjoy listening to some of your other guests. They inspire me to think about my own training and think about my life, right? Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I might not have said in my last interview that I just want to say, because I think about myself, more than just an athlete, I am a cheerleader for that person that is not living their best life physically, but knows that they have so much more that they want to experience. I see myself as that person that will cheer them on, right? And the one thing that I was reflecting on everybody talks about that aha moment, right? Mm-hmm. So before that aha moment comes, though, as we're living our life not to our potential, the one thing that I think makes a big difference is that I always believed in myself that I could do anything I wanted to do once I wanted to do it. Okay, so what is that? What makes you get to that point where you want to do it? I don't know. If I freaking knew that, I'd be rich. So I want to say to all those people who are thinking about starting an exercise program, or maybe they've started one, and I don't know. If you believe that you're going to do it, whatever that is, you believe that you're going to lose the weight, even if you're not doing it now, even if you're not even close to doing it now, but inside you know that you will do it. Just keep believing that. Just keep believing that, and you will do it. Something will come along. One of your guests, maybe you as a trainer, maybe they'll walk into your gym, maybe a bed at work, maybe getting a new puppy. Something will change, and that belief will come to the surface and help you make it easy to get to where it is that you can get to. So I just wanted to say that, because I know a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to do it. And they have a lot of people around them rolling their eyeballs or saying, well, you've tried so many times and you've never done it before. Like, mind your own business. Just if you have it inside yourself and you really believe that you're going to do it, you will. You will.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. I think there's two big distinctions that one from today and one from the last time, the distinction between being lucky and being fortunate. And then the one from last time, which I use a lot with members, is your distinction between being in maintenance or being in permanence. And I think that's really, that's, because you are in permanence, aren't you? You are,
Totally.
Yeah, which I think is
in that part of my life for sure. Now I've got to get to being a permanent dog owner.
Yeah, you're still in the development stage of the dog ownership. Okay, Mr. Peter Lant, do you have anything you'd like to say in conclusion? Any thoughts or anything you'd like to say?
No, I think that was really good, because I really like conversations like this, because sometimes, like when we get people on, we know what we're going to talk about, and they've said, like, can I talk about this specifically? But today, obviously, the first episode we did with you, Tracy, we knew we were going to talk about your transformation and what made you do it and how it happened and all of that. And this is like, but today was just like, right, let's just have a catch up on things like that. And it's the same as it went with Rick Brown. It's the same as we've done with Dan John and stuff like that. It's like just like having the sort of chat you'd have if you just met up, in the park or something like that, and had a coffee or something like that. So it's really good, because these are the sorts of chats people can have with their friends when they're having a coffee and things like that, and just talk about stuff openly. And then little nuggets drop out that are really helpful for people to then say, oh, hang on, I could use that. Like you said, like you've just said, Tracy, if you keep saying things to yourself and believing in yourself, because it goes the opposite way as well, doesn't it? People can put themselves down, and then they're gonna end up that person. So just go the other way. And then
I think what people say to other people is different than what they really feel inside, though, to be honest with you. I think when people talk to other people about how bad they feel about themselves, I think they're doing it for commiseration, maybe for attention, for whatever. I really, truly in my heart, don't believe that people feel badly about themselves. I really don't. I just think that they don't feel it safe to feel good about themselves in their circle of family or friends or coworkers. They get more reinforcement from talking bad about themselves than they do about talking good about themselves. But truly, in my heart, based on how I have always felt about myself, and I think you do too, you're a good person, you're a capable person. I know you think that about yourself. And even though you might have had times where those words have come out of your mouth, I don't feel good today, or I can't do that, or whatever. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that.
No, that's cool. So that's why I think conversations like this are great. And if people can have conversations, not necessarily like this, but in a similar vein with their friends and stuff like that over coffee, then, this is where, this is where the world becomes a better place, doesn't it? Which is what we're trying to do. So there you go. Just a tiny little thought for you there, James.
Mr. Paul Bassett, do you have anything you'd like to say?
No, that was quite a long summing up there from Peter. It's normally the other way around, isn't it? But no, that's great. No, I've really enjoyed that. I mean, obviously, you do kind of enter into any of these things willing to really throw yourself into the deep end and find as much information as possible, so that you don't walk blindly through it. Definitely, you're making a commitment to do things well, and I think that always puts anyone in good stead if you kind of make a commitment to say, okay, if I'm going to do something, I might as well do it properly. Whether it's obviously the puppy and Kettlebell Sport or just anything, baking. If you set yourself up to succeed and start talking much more positive language, and you see it as a journey I get a sense that you really get excited about the process, and I think that's a really good place to be, because then it means anything you come against, then you've got a kind of blueprint that you can follow in order to not only enjoy it, but also to see to the other end if it's something that's more challenging. So it's fascinating. So I always really enjoyed it. Certainly your last podcast, I've listened to it a couple of times since we actually did it, so it's great to have it back on.
The other thing I want to add about doing things properly, right, and starting someplace and going progressively through something, is that a lot of people have done stuff before us, right? There were bakers before me, there were kettlebell athletes before me. So there is, like I think Fabio said, it's like physics, right? There's a way that you follow, and it will get you to some place. But if you put that practice in, what will happen is, as you cross off all of those, every stair you climb, every rep you take, what you start to develop as your own athlete. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you come up with your own stuff. right? Like I've come up with my own stuff for Swing Lean. A lot of other trainers have come up with their own programs and their own certifications and that sort of thing. So their own content, new and original content that nobody else has talked about before. You have a lot of guests that talk about what they've discovered. So it's also it's a journey of discovery. It's a journey of discovery. So,
and Tracy, I think most people, well, after my little bit at the start, will have listened to both podcasts now. But if people do want to find out more about you, to follow you, to keep an eye on, obviously we've got the, is it Walker _ Ridgeback? That's the doggy Instagram. Yeah. What's your Instagram for the?
Tracy Reifkind on Instagram, but it's more, I'm Facebook for my business more. You'll see a lot of bread, sourdough on my Instagram. So I also have a group on Facebook, Tracy Reifkind's Swing Lean group. If you want to come, it's a private group, but I'm going to open it up to anybody that wants to join. I'm going to be posting more regularly there. So if you want to just request that you're part of that, I want to request to be part of your Facebook group, Health Oddity Facebook group, because I want to stay, because I've listened to many, not all of them, but a lot of your podcasts. And like I said, I'm always reminded of something that I want to focus on, or I want to improve on, or piss me off. One of the two, you never know. Sometimes you go, really? Okay. So
we had your first episode was sourdough and snatches. I'm just thinking of maybe calling this one Rucking and Ridgebacks.
Totally.
Well, yeah. Okay. And just as Tracy just said, guys, we are, if you are listening, which you would, if you're listening to this, you are listening, please do like, subscribe, share the podcast, tell people about it. If you're listening or watching on a platform that allows you to leave a review, please do leave a review. And also, as Tracy mentioned there is a Facebook group. We did have someone have a bit of an issue getting in the other week, but we've had other people come in since. So just search for Health Oddity in groups on Facebook and just click on to join, and then we'll let you in there as well. So we are back next week with Owen from My Vital Metrics, who is joining us, who runs a clinic in London doing all kinds of DEXA scans and VO2 max testing and resting metabolic rate testing and that sort of thing. So we're going to have a really interesting conversation with him next week around testing and assessments. But if we can say ta-ta, Mr. Peter Lance.
Ta-ra.
Ta-ra. Mr. Paul Bassett been joined by a guest.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. And Tracy Reifkind, thank you so much for coming back a second time. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Take care, guys. See you next week.
You've been listening to Health Odyssey with Peter Lant, Paul Bassett, and James St. Pierre. To get your regular fix of hype-free health, you can subscribe and leave a review wherever you get your favorite podcasts. You can find out more on today's and other topics at healthodyssey.com or find us on Facebook or Instagram by searching for Health Odyssey.